So faraway Lucas and lovely audience at home, welcome to another episode of Wiki Weekends, a series where we scour the lengths and breadths of the internet. Do you know what? I've said that enough now. We find wikis on stuff we want to talk about and talk about them. And today we're talking about, Lucas, one of our favourite guilty pleasure video games, Resident Evil 5.
Now, Resident Evil 5 is such a weird thing because I just say guilty pleasure of... Yes, it sent just the Resident Evil franchise down that rabbit hole of, dear God, what's going on? But it also was just such a good co-op game.
Like, Resident Evil 5 has some real big highs and some real low lows.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I guess we could talk about Resident Evil 5, Lucas. Like I said, me and you love this game. Like,
unironically, yes.
Yeah, I unironically love Resident Evil 5. I love that they leaned into the campy B-movie elements established in number 4 and just turn them up to 11. So you go from like Leon Kennedy making stupid quips and backflipping over lasers. The natural evolution of that is Chris Redfield shooting a rocket launcher at a man made of worms screaming in a volcano.
Suck on this, Wesker.
Your time's up, you son of a bitch.
Like, no, it's a natural evolution. It jumped like you went from the first movie in a franchise to like the reboot 20 years later.
Well, you look at RE1 to RE5 and it's like the Fast and Furious franchise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really good example. Like Resident Evil is just a Fast and Furious franchise for video games. Like, it starts with a very simple concept of, hey, some zombies are in an abandoned mansion. You should probably see what the fuck's going on there. And it ends with Chris Redfield just suplexing giant boulders and firing rocket launchers into volcanoes.
And I think RE5 hit that nice balance that RE6 just took, and just went too far with.
And I 100% agree with that I feel like Resident Evil 4 is the superior game. I have way more fun playing Resident Evil 5.
I have more fun, but I think that's just... It's a good co-op game, and naturally you're going to have more fun dicking around with a friend.
And we can get to that after we've got everyone on the same page. Specifically, this Wikipedia page. So, Resident Evil 5 is a 2009... Wait a minute. I pronounced that wrong. It's actually pronounced Resident Evil 5. Or if you're in Japan, Biohazard. Which they actually say. I was pleasantly surprised.
Do the same thing? Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised when I checked out a Japanese version of Resident Evil 4, and it actually opens up and just says Biohazard 4.
Biohazard 4.
I love that, and I was so disappointed when RE4 Remake happened, and I clicked the button, it made the same noise in the start menu, and then Resident Evil didn't happen.
And Resident Evil 4 Remake, fantastic game, but that single complaint I think we both have is, where's the merchant? So I know he's in the game, but he doesn't say the line, and it's not the same voice actor.
Yeah, the fact that it's like a different voice actor, it's not like, what are you buying?
The shittiness of that voice line is what made that character, despite not being a character, a beloved fan favourite character of Resident Evil. That guy has 6 lines of dialogue and he's one of the most memorable characters in the series. And all it is just a dude who goes, what are you buying?
Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger. What are you buying?
Welcome. What can I interest you in?
However, they did do a very good job of changing it up. Like, the lines that he has when you're in the shooting gallery and stuff. Like, he is a really good character.
He's a great character, but I just wish they got the same guy back. And fun fact, the voice actor in Resident Evil 4 for the merchant was the voice actor for Leon in that game.
Yeah.
Like, they just brought him back. Mate, we've got this merchant character. He sells you stuff. Can you, voice him? He's like, oh, I've got it. And he just came in, what are you buying? It's like, yeah! You know he nailed that first take as well.
It's so iconic, and that's the thing. It's just a bit sad that there wasn't even, the Easter egg where you could unlock, the old clips or anything.
I kind of wanted, the merchant to become, a recurring character. And in Resident Evil 5, which we're talking about today, they fake you out, because when you arrive in, the African village, there's the guy wearing, the turban and the mask. And he's like, oh, come with me. And you think, oh, is that the merchant? Is that Africa merchant?
Good, you're both here.
Do you remember that? Like, right at the start, yeah, there's a guy with, like, a covered face, and he says, oh, I'm going to give you your guns. And you think, oh, is that the merchant for Africa? Does he have an African brother? Is he like the Stig? We've just got brothers all around the world who have the same gimmick.
All we know is he's not the Stig, but he is the Stig's African cousin.
Just trying to think, like, is there a merchant? But I think it's just between each chapter you
buy
just go
stuff,
to a
yeah.
shop. Yeah.
But there is that guy right there saying, oh, is that African merchant man? And is he going to say, what are you buying in an African accent? And they never brought him back. And I was like kind of annoyed that he did that. And I think the closest we got is like Resident Evil 8, where you're in like Eastern Europe and you have like the guy, the Duke, who references the merchant and say, oh, a guy I know says that. Mm-hmm. And when you're buying stuff off him, sometimes he'll say, oh, what are you buying? Oh, an old friend of mine would say that. I always wondered why.
What are you buying? Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
I wonder why a merchant would ask what you're buying.
But then we have here though, so it's Resident Evil 5 is a 2000. Look at that, we got one line in. We got one line in. A 2009 third-person shooter video game developed and published by Capcom. And I'm saying that because Capcom were infamous for like the 2010s around that time of misspelling a bunch of stuff on their games. At one point, misspelling their own company's name as Capcom on one of their logos. Remember that?
I don't remember that one. I do remember, I think it's Capcom as well, Okami.
Yep, Okami, where they left the IGN logo on the Okami thing because they just grabbed a screenshot of the game from IGN. It's like, it's your game. Have you not got a better quality screenshot for the cover?
Have you not got that direct asset on a file somewhere?
Apparently not, no. It's a major installment in the Resident Evil series and was announced in 2005, the same year as its predecessor Resident Evil 4 was released, so 4 years between.
Man, the fact that it was announced the year RE4 came out is wild.
Well, it was announced with that big, massive lie trailer. Do you remember the big lie trailer, Lucas, where it shows like the 1,000 zombies chasing Chris down the hallway? And it shows like the dynamic dodge button that they were going to put in. Of like, oh, Chris has like a dodge button to like, avoid the hordes of zombies. And it's like, there's none of that in Resident Evil 5.
He doesn't need to dodge. He's got those hands, Karl.
But wouldn't it have been cool if they put a dodge system in?
It would have been. And you know what I find really funny is that I played RE3 Remake, like an RE2 Remake, like a couple of years after they'd come out. And then after I fell in love with how good RE2 Remake was, I picked up RE3 on sale and went through that game and was like, oh yeah, like that was good, but like it felt a little bit clunky at times. Yeah. And then I watched like a video of people doing a speed run for it using a dodge, and I was like, there's a dodge button?
And speaking of a dodge button and Resident Evil as a franchise, I think me and you both played through like Resident Evil 4 Remake, like 10 times each, easy. Our single biggest complaint about that game is that there's not a dodge button. It feels like that the thing that game needs to make it perfect is a dodge button. Just give Leon Kennedy, who does shit like this, the ability to just go, whoa. That's all I want. Just let him go, whoa. That's it. Just let me juke a Ganado.
The man can dodge an entire hallway of lasers, but can't just dodge a punch.
He can parry bullets with a knife, but he can't
parry a chainsaw with a knife.
But you just can't juke. Just give Leon just a little juke. That's all I want, and that game would have been perfect mechanically.
You would have been so powerful, though.
You would have been, but you're playing as a guy who, remember, could do this. The plot involves an investigation of a terrorist threat by Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance agents Chris Redfield and Sheva Alomar. And what do you think about Sheva? Because she was in one game, everyone shat on her, and then she never came back.
That's the thing, right? Is that I don't really have a problem with the characterization. I enjoyed her and Josh as well. Her like partner, essentially like partner, not partner, because obviously she's with Chris at the time, but she previously worked with Josh, and I like those two as characters. But then because she had such awful AI companion, like just utilization, just everyone crapped on her for being bad gameplay wise.
I was going to talk about that. It's really weird how people dislike the character, not because of how she's portrayed in game, but because of just how fucking incompetent the AI is. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think the classic example everyone who played that game has in their mind is putting down a landmine and Sheva picking it straight back up. Which, fun fact, she won't do if you tell her not to, but the game doesn't really tutorialize how to actually control the AI partner all that well, because most people just have her on the healing one, right? Most people say, fuck it, just put Sheva on support so she heals me if I need it.
Yeah.
If you put her on that, she's programmed to collect resources, which include mines put on the floor. And I think it sums up, you put a landmine down, Sheva picks it straight back up. It's like, that's not what I asked you to do.
But I think it does really show, because everybody I know that first experience with Resident Evil 5 being co-op really has like nostalgia for the game, but anyone that played it solo and had to deal with that AI companion just really didn't like it.
And there are many ways to just make that game better, one of which is just playing with a friend. Even with the AI, if you just give her the stun rod, and all of your healing items and just turn it into, you heal me.
And that's the problem. It shouldn't be like that. That shouldn't be what your partner in crime is essentially doing. Like, yeah.
And like gameplay-wise, it's just a lot of fun. And one of the things I quite like about playing as Sheva is that she's left-handed. Because you aim over the different shoulder with her, and they did that because if you're playing in co-op, and it's that split screen where initially you're annoyed by it because there's a bunch of like dead space on the screen, and then you realise, oh no, this is so you can both have the full aspect ratio to view what your character's doing.
It would have been nice if they did something with the dead space, like move your mini-maps onto there or something, but yeah, at least you don't get that squashed aspect ratio, I guess.
Yeah, or lose like visual information that would be on the screen, and because they're aiming over the opposite shoulder each, it just makes that screen look a little less cluttered, because if they were both aiming the same way, it would just visually look a bit weird, but it does get kind of jarring when you play a Sheva for the first time and you're like, oh wait, she aims the opposite direction. It does throw you off a little bit.
Yeah, it does a little bit, I guess, but like maybe that's something I just never really clocked in my head of why it feels a bit different. But you know, I played so much of that game that by the end of when I was good at it, just I could get a headshot with the bow and arrow from just any distance at any time, just without a reticle or anything.
And I think that as well is just the best part of the game is mechanically. Once you figure out how to play that game mechanically, it is such a tight experience. Like, I think me and you played so much Mercenaries mode, and the dumb stuff you can do in Mercenaries mode, like reloading your shotgun while climbing ladders.
That is one of the greatest things. If you get good at your inventory management, you can, anytime there's an animation, be reloading all of your weapons and swapping your gear out.
Yeah, so this is getting like a little bit deep into the weeds of like, you know, the mechanics of the game. But the basic summation of what we're talking about is that in the like Resident Evil 5, there are canned animations, and almost all of them give you iframes in some way. And iframes, for those who aren't familiar, are invincibility frames. Essentially, just moments where your character cannot be hurt, damaged, or interfered with by the enemy while doing a certain action, because otherwise it'd be fucking annoying. Like, for example, jumping over a fence. While you're doing that, your character just cannot be hurt or interacted with in any way by the enemy, because it'd kind of suck if they could do that, right?
It would be awful if they could do that, because that's multiple seconds where you're just locked into an animation for the sake of the game looking a bit cooler.
Yeah, and because you cannot be hurt during that moment, you're effectively got like 3 or 4 seconds where you know the enemy can't hurt you. But during that 3 or 4 seconds, you can actually just open up your menu and just drag and drop some ammo and like combine it with your gun, effectively reloading your gun instantaneously and completely skipping the animation that would play otherwise.
Reload your shotgun, your magnum, and your handgun while climbing a ladder.
And if you get real good at it, you can do that during any animation, including the melee animations of punching an enemy.
So you can, while just punching or kicking an enemy, reload your shotgun instantly and be ready to keep going.
And that sounds like you're abusing a game mechanic, but in my head, Chris Redfield's just that good.
Yeah.
Do you know what we always talk about? The one you always bring up, Lucas, from like Metal Gear Solid 3, which is...
It's when you press like the button really quickly to stow your weapon and bring it back out, it instantly reloads it. But that means that you can do it with like rocket launchers, where Snake can put away a rocket launcher into his back pocket and pull it back out fully reloaded within the space of like half a second.
Yeah, and again, that sounds like you're abusing gameplay mechanics, but it might, you know what? Naked Snake's just that good.
You see, the technique he's using is when he's firing off the RPG, it's unequipping and equipping it as quickly as possible, because in this section and for the several sections that follow, you have unlimited ammo.
Yeah, he's the world's greatest soldier.
Yeah, he's the greatest soldier in the world, and I really like when game mechanics allow for things like that. It looks a little bit silly, but how much better does the gameplay loop of Resident Evil 5 flow when you get that down? When you are like, you kneecap an enemy, run up, uppercut them, and during that uppercut animation, reload your gun. It means that you are constantly engaged. There's never a moment where you are not engaged by what's going on screen. And I love that about that game, when you really get into the nitty-gritty of it. And
it also means that it makes like the mechanical mastery of the Mercenaries mode even better, and because it's a high score mode where you're competing with other people, just the more efficient you can be, everything matters towards that high score.
It's like every second that you can save is another 1,000 points that you move up the leaderboard. And like, can we talk about Mercenaries mode and how it's like just the biggest missed opportunity that like Capcom have never really done anything with?
What you want about, Karl? They made the Mercenaries 3DS game.
Yeah, which was a 3DS game, fun fact, folks, that you could only have one save on. And it was Capcom's, dipping their toes into the idea of, let's just let people play a game once. And then that got shat on, rightly so, by every conceivable source of people. Like, this is bullshit. I can play this game once? What the fuck? Everyone's wondering, wait, how do they make it so you can play the game once? There was a single persistent save throughout the game. So if you bought a pre-owned copy, you will be stuck with everything the person previously had unlocked up to that point. And for a point of comparison, imagine picking up a Pokemon game secondhand and being unable to start a new game. You had to just continue from whatever the previous person had done, regardless of how far along they were. And how much that would suck, and how much you'd be like, this fucking sucks, you can't do this. And that's what Capcom tried to do.
And just not to mention how just it was a bad game on the 3DS. It was poorly designed, it ran poorly, bad levels, like not good unlocks, just poor control scheme because the 3DS didn't have enough like analog sticks or anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, and that's really the only thing they did with Mercenaries, up until apparently the Mercenaries in RE6 is quite good, but I never really got on with RE6, and then they brought it back for RE4, and me and you were like, sick, Mercenaries mode. I remember me and you got drunk one evening and played Mercenaries mode until 5 in the morning, and we had so much fun, and we were like, this is perfect. This is the perfect Mercenaries. All they need to do is just now, every couple of weeks, just give us a new fucking character. And they've put 2 new characters in. It's like, where's Chris?
That's the thing is, okay, they've given us a little update where they added, like, I think 1 more map and 2 new characters, as you said, but where is just the game where they combine, like, all the characters and movesets from multiple different Resident Evils and just give us the ultimate Mercenaries game that isn't a really bad one on the 3DS?
And it's such a missed opportunity that they've not taken all of the models of the characters in the RE engine and just drag and dropped them into Mercenaries mode in number 4.
The fact that there's not,
Jill?
like, RE2 Leon, there's not Jill, there's not Claire, just there's not Carlos. What is going on? Why aren't these characters in?
And I guess I've kind of got to get props because Special Agent Hunk's in it, and he's one of my favourite like Resident Evil characters because he's not a character.
They've got Hunk in there, but like they haven't got Tofu in there, Karl.
Tofu? Put them all in, and that's it. What a missed opportunity. But moving on here, it says here that the game sold 13.4 million units. It is the best-selling game in the Resident Evil franchise when not including remakes. If you don't include the remakes, it is the single best-selling game in the Resident Evil series.
Yeah, I remember it being more successful because it came off the back of RE4, but you'd have thought over the years the amount RE4 had been ported to every goddamn toaster in the world that it would have outsold it at this point.
I don't know. It's like a lot of people like Resident Evil 5, and a lot of people have a nostalgia for it. I'm hoping a lot of them are clicking on this video to watch it. And when you say that, Resident Evil 5 received a positive reception, despite some criticisms for its control scheme. It is a bit clunky when you first pick it up, I imagine, especially when you've got like an entire extra person off camera you got to play with. Right, especially if you're playing like single player. And it says, while the game received some complaints of racism, an investigation by the British Board of Film Classifications found that the complaints were unsubstantiated. And we're not going to delve into this, Lucas. I'm just now going to put in a clip from the village level of Resident Evil 5. And that discussion has been had to death online, and I imagine if this game, as it probably will, gets a remaster at some point, the discussion will happen all over again. And all you ever really need to do is just show a clip from that village sequence.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is the next game that they remake. Like, what do they do? Do they double down on it? Do they remake it and just say, that is the context of the thing that we made at the time? Or do they just wipe it from existence?
I've said, if they're going to do it, they need to put more in. Now, I want more of the village section.
No, don't put more in.
They've got to do it.
It's like, look how bad we were less than 15 years ago.
And something that sticks in my mind is when I streamed this game a few years ago. If you like to see me stream, you can check out the links below. Hey, see what I did there? And I was telling people who were watching at home about the controversy. Because people were, I think someone in chat asked, like, isn't this the game that got, like, accused of being racist? And I explained, okay, yeah, there were some accusations of, let's use diplomatic language here and say, just not the best representation of the people of Africa in this video game. And those allegations were deemed to be blown out of proportion. And then I booted up the village level.
God.
And then a man in like a straight out of Crash Bandicoot mask walks around the corner, whooping and hollering, covered in mud, surrounded by the straw huts, and he threw a spear at me. And I just sat and I looked at the screen and went, it was 10 years ago and apparently no one gave a fuck.
That's the thing where it's just show them that clip and let people judge for themselves.
That's all you need to do. And when people say, no, it's not that racist, you just put that clip in and say...
I certainly don't want to be the person defending that.
That's the thing as well. You don't even need to say, you say, is this what you want to defend? I just want them to put a screenshot of that level behind the person in charge of the development and just say, discuss.
I just want when the remake happens, you boot it up, and that Disney screen of this was made in a different time. Please take it into context. It's it was 2009 Capcom.
You look it up and it came out 11 years ago. And it always makes me laugh of just how ridiculous it is. Like, if you ask somebody to come up with the most mocking, racist stereotype they could of a person from Africa, it would be half as bad as that.
Yeah, it would be comparable probably, and just it is wild, and we always say that we like this game, but it's always taken with that very large pinch of salt of
if someone's there I don't see anything wrong with that, that's fine. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to be the person who has to sit there and say, really? That's the hill you're gonna die on?
You don't even need that second half of that conversation really, other than just is this what you want to defend?
And moving swiftly on, let's now discuss the plot. In 2009, 5 years after the events of Resident Evil 4, Chris Redfield, now an agent of the BSAA, is dispatched to Kijuju in West Africa. And that's the classic thing they do in Resident Evil, just make up somewhere in a country so we can just go shoot people there.
It's RE4, definitely not set in Spain. Don't worry, it's definitely not Spain, honestly.
Even though all the villagers speak Spanish.
And it's clearly set, they talk about being in Europe somewhere, and they all speak Spanish, and it looks like very traditional Spanish. Yeah.
And that's just all the enemies of speak Spanish.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's just set. Don't worry, it's just set somewhere in like
I think
rural Europe.
RE8 is the same thing. Oh, it's like Eastern Europe somewhere, and it's like it's inspired by maybe like Romania or something. I think.
And it's the same thing for Resident Evil 5. It's just in a made up part of Africa, so we can just like make up whatever geography we want for cool set pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it seems that the person who wrote this plot summary really wanted to get all of the details right. So there's like 4 or 5 paragraphs here, but we don't really need to get into those. All you need to know is that Chris is dispatched to Africa because he hears that Wesker's there, and he's got a big old hard-on for Wesker at that point in the game. And why does he hate Wesker, Lucas?
I mean, for a number of reasons, but the thing that's explained in the DLC for the game is that essentially the death of his partner, Jill Valentine, or perceived death of Jill Valentine,
Death of Jill Valentine,
is because they were fighting Wesker and Jill sacrificed herself trying to kill him in a previous fight.
Let's finish this.
Lucas, you got that a little bit wrong. They weren't fighting Wesker, they were Matrix fighting Wesker.
They were just fighting Goku in a mansion, basically.
They weren't fighting Wesker, they were surviving an encounter with Wesker, who has superpowers.
I think one of my favourite things with that DLC moment is that you go into it and it's like set a few years ago and it's based on like RE1 design Chris where he's really slim.
Yes.
And then you watch that fight happen and then it's like, that makes so much more sense why Chris is so buff now.
And to clarify, that is actually canon to the Resident Evil 5 story. That Chris Redfield got his ass kicked by Wesker and was like, well, the guy's got superpowers. How the hell am I supposed to do anything against that? Oh, I know. I'll just get super jacked and just eat all of the steroids.
I'm just going to live in that gym.
Yeah, so if anyone's ever wondered, like, why does Chris Redfield suddenly just become absolutely ginormous? It's because he lost Jill because he physically wasn't strong enough to pose a threat to Wesker. So he's like, I'm just going to hit the gym. All day. Get my gains, bro. Let's go.
No, that's the thing. If you fight that entity and then realise that he's still out there, potentially causing crimes, you're going to have to train.
And it really does make sense that Chris's only real option is just to pack on the pounds, like put on that timber. Because you try shooting Wesker, and it doesn't work. The only thing that does any perceivable damage to Wesker is just punching him in the fucking face. And the problem was that Chris just wasn't beefy enough to do any real damage. And one of the things I love about like the fights you have in RE5 with Wesker is when Chris managed to get that full combo. Like Joe, you're having like the Wesker fight, and you blind him, which I love as well. I love the detail that if you shoot Wesker's sunglasses off and throw a flashbang, he gets blinded. And a detail that I adore is that if you watch Chris's face when he punches Wesker in the gut, he grimaces in pain.
Oh, like because he's getting hurting Wesker. Like
Wesker is that solid that Chris grimaces in pain when he lands up. When you see him do that after he punches Wesker. And it barely does anything to him. It doesn't hurt Wesker that much, but it hurts him a little bit, and that's enough. And just Chris is just carried by pure adrenaline.
Bear in mind that this is the same Chris that punches that boulder into a volcano.
I was just about to mention that, yes, of like the boulder punching scene, which is so dumb, but also so amazing. And it really does contextualize how strong, one, Chris is, and two, how durable Wesker is. That the same punchers that can pulverize a boulder and move like 5 tons of sheer rock. doesn't hurt Wesker. Like, Wesker just walks that shit off.
Yeah, he punches a boulder multiple times hard enough that this thing that's, 5+ times the size of Chris, that's just pure rock, moves out the way for him.
Yeah. I like to think in that moment as well, it's like just the boulder respected his gains. It's like the boulder just felt insignificant, like just Sisyphus over here, just like moving the boulder out of the way. And another detail of that fight that I really like is that Chris just gets stuck in there. Like, he just goes in and starts throwing the body blows. Sheva does not have the 150 pounds of muscle that Chris has. But what she does have is she can throw some real nasty kicks.
Yes, she can.
And she gets like the backflip combo, right? They both have a unique combo they can do on Wesker.
And I think that combo system is one of the things that makes both the co-op experience and the Mercenaries experience really fun, because every character and I think each iteration of each character as well, when they get costume changes, they all have different combos with each other.
Yeah, so a system that was introduced in Resident Evil 4 is if you land a critical shot on an enemy, such as like a headshot or a shot to the knee, you get a brief moment where you can walk over and do a melee attack. And they really, really like that system in Resident Evil 4. And they refined it in Resident Evil 5 where, it's not just if you shoot in the knee or the head, you can also shoot the enemy in the arms. Like, left or right arm. Or you can go behind the enemy. So if you shoot an enemy in the knee, you get a different melee if you're stood in front of the enemy to if you're stood in behind the enemy. But also, if your teammate is with you, and you hit an enemy with a certain attack and your teammate's there, they'll do another attack and you can just wombo combo an enemy and you get unique finishers, which are the most powerful thing in the entire game.
And it depends on which characters that you have. So some will just have generic ones, but you put someone like Josh with Sheva, they have unique team combos that work out.
And of course they have unique team hyper combos on the enemy.
Yeah.
Do you have any favourite melee attacks from that game? Because there's a couple that live in my head rent-free. One is obviously the classic, the Neckbreaker. Like the Special Agent Hunk special that Chris gets, just the... So satisfying.
I mean, obviously the Wesker ones all look cool.
Oh, yeah. Like Cobra Strike and Panther Fang.
The two that always stand out to me is, I can't remember the name of the finisher, but the one where Barry just stomps on them and shoots them in the head.
Oh, that's Miranda Rights, which
yeah.
Again, speaking of aging quite poorly, a guy using a move called Miranda Rights, where he pulls out a gun and shoots someone on the floor, in a game that's near exclusively full of enemies that are black. Again, when I was just streaming the game, I just said, everyone at home, just appreciate what is about to happen on screen right now. Miranda Rights, bang!
Without hesitation, just shoots them in the head.
The optics on that aren't great. It's like when you go back and play Mortal Kombat 9, and the intro that Stryker has is him firing his gun into the air and shouting police brutality. It's like, you couldn't do that today. You probably shouldn't have done it then, but you definitely couldn't do it now.
I guess you could probably in the parody-esque world that Mortal Kombat is, mocking, but it would still probably not look that great. But
yeah,
going back to RE5 though with the finishes.
That move's called Hurricane, I think. Oh, sorry, that's Miranda Rights, and then Barry's super one is the Hurricane, which is the double lariat from Hager. Yes, Hager's double lariat, because it's a Capcom game and they put references in.
And then the other one that always just tickles me is just the fact Rebecca Chambers just pulls out a flamethrower.
Oh yeah, like the flame shot, which does loads of damage, by the way, as well.
Yeah, she just gets a lighter and an aerosol can or something and just does the flamethrower attack.
And if you've played as much Resident Evil 5 as myself and Lucas has, every single one of those melee attacks has a different damage number. And some of them are more useful than others. For example, Wesker's Cobra Strike, I think, just does 1,500 damage, which is more health than almost any enemy in the game has, or any base enemy. So it always kills every enemy in one hit. And there's actually a tier system for the Mercenaries mode of like which characters can just do the tactic of one headshot, one melee. And some characters cannot do that because their melees aren't strong enough or like quick enough to make it worth your while. Because every enemy you kill with a melee attack in Mercenaries mode gives you 5 seconds extra time. And the idea is if like, you know, a character that has a very quick, powerful melee will kill the enemy in less than 5 seconds. So that's an overall net gain.
But then there's other characters where they have super long animations or animations that like don't kill in the one shot, one hit combo. So it's not worth that 5 seconds, yeah.
And that's something they did fix in like the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the PC release of the game. They put in no mercy mode, which doubles the amount of enemies and lowers all their health, so that pretty much every like character in that mode is usable, and as a result you can use a lot of the cool moves that would be useless in the base game.
And obviously that's getting really into the weeds of just getting high scores on the mercenary mode of the game,
which me and you both loved doing. And just think, I really like Josh in that because he has all the wrestling moves, and one of the moves he's like his ultimate attack is just the dynamite drop kick. And he just jumps up and drop kicks. It's an instant kill. And just enemies fly like 1,000 feet back. Because, of course, they just got hit by, like, no, Josh Stone's legs.
And I will say, out of all the things we talked about in Mercenaries, my favourite thing ever, just, like, unironically, I love the fact that your entire run can be ended by a rogue chicken that you can't find.
Yep. Just random chickens, because the chickens count as one of the kills.
Technically, to finish Mercenaries mode, you have to kill all of the enemies, including the chickens.
Yes, and the chicken, as people just saw, it makes your combo counter go up, and it's worth 2,000 points. So it's actually worth killing.
It's great.
It's also sort of just one of those things where there's just something magical about when you get into the flow of a good Mercenaries run. Lucas, I'm not going to make it. Why? Lucas, help. I'm not gonna... What that is, that's Sheva catching Chris in midair. Like, whether it be a Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4 Remake, or RE5, when you are in the flow and your character is just fucking untouched, you think, that's what it'd be like. That's what it'd be like if the greatest special agent on Earth was asked to fight 500 unarmed zombies. I'm sorry. It's time.
Oh my god, he's just gone.
Oh, but it happened while I was on fire, so it looks super like metal. Just a guy with a giant...
Flaming Axe Executioner!
And like, you basically become, like, cutscene Leon for a little bit. Or, dare I say it, CGI movie Leon. Like, you can never be as cool as that, but you approach shades of it when you're in that Mercenaries-like mode in RE4 Remake, and you're like, ting, 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 with the knife.
Hitting every single parry on strike, yeah.
It makes you feel so badass when you pull that off, and it's like, there's not been many game experiences I've had where it's topped that.
No, and it does really bring, like, some of my favourite memories are, like, just co-op RE5, mostly Mercenaries, but also in the campaign. But I think just one of my favourite memories is playing it the opposite way, where you don't be any help, and you just sit there going, go!
I know exactly.
And you just got, like... Your friend is just surrounded by like 40 zombies, getting mauled to death, getting like spiders trapping them in, and they're like, help me, and you're like, go.
You should just keep pressing B to ask for help. No, keep asking for help and I'm on my way. Stop saying go. I'm on my way. Stop running away, I'm coming. Stop.
Oh, I found the chicken.
Oh, just like, as well, just sometimes when you just do something like, that was amazing. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, when you pick Barry Burton for the first time, it's like, okay, what's his melee attack? And he just headbutts an enemy and the head explodes. And you're like, okay, I can see why that guy was in charge. This guy is so far away. He was so far away. Oh, no! This is like the most threatening thing I've ever seen. I just realised, do we have any healing items?
I don't think so.
We might have picked 2 characters who don't have healing items between them.
I've got 2 gold eggs.
Oh, do you want to give me an egg?
Yeah, there you go.
And you know what? Barry and Chris, they've been to the gym. They need the fucking protein.
The protein. We don't need healing items. We just need eggs.
These lads need their protein. Oh, gun bash.
I understand why Barry got hired.
Just like that man is just fucking. He is a unit. And I think that's enough talk about Resident Evil 5 for today, Lucas. So, audience at home, if you want to continue talking about Resident Evil 5, you can do so by going down to the comments section below or clicking on the link to our Discord where you can continue the conversation or give us suggestions for something to cover in another video in the future. But I hope everyone at home enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and go out there and have the day that you deserve.
Hell yeah.
Cheers.
Ooh.
Get him. Perfect. Just team up.
Oh
no! Oh no! Both!
He took us both out!
Oh, I thought we had him. We had him like crowded.
Oh no!
Just did it. Lucas, he did it like the invincible wake up.
Oh god, he used his iframes.
He did. He has. I've got iframes to abuse too, motherfuckers.
There's no beating that, Karl.
Fucking hell. That was rough.